Hello and welcome to Beyond the Veil background information. So we're doing species profiles in this one, and we're starting a new group of species, which are the sea monsters. Now, some of them are going to be like some of the other creatures I've talked about already, and therefore able to have a human form, and some of them aren't because they're sea monsters. But this video is going to be just a brief discussion about the whole topic. So it won't be as informative as the next couple of videos, but hopefully you'll find it interesting. As always, I'll start with a quote from one of the stories that I mentioned, and then I'll just go into telling you the background stuff about sea monsters. Well, we know they're not dragons, of course, but sea monsters is a pretty big category, and oddly, not many are actually demons either. The thing is, we prefer to just class them as ordinary sea creatures. I mean, they aren't all the sort that can talk to you or possess your mind or suddenly open their mouth to create a whirlpool. Just a few can. That's from a very Vale wildlife park. The term sea monster is quite a loose term, really, that just about covers everything we see in historical accounts as well as in mythological, even folklore regarding odd creatures that don't fit what we've already categorised in the ocean. It's well known that we know more about the surface of the moon than of the ocean floor, and certainly history has shown us more striking skeletons of prehistoric beasts in the sea, from Megalodon to the mosasaur family, with new species being found all over the place, just to make us think even more about it. At the time of writing this, a plesiosaur that had been found in Dorset was finally fully uncovered, including its skull, and this happened to be the dig and creature discussed in the David Attenborough programme, Attenborough and the Giant Sea Monster. Of course, there's a prehistoric sea reptile named Attenborosaurus amongst the grouping, and it's the general consensus that most of the things called sea monsters come from these creatures with their distinctive flippers and tails, and yet the stories are immense. Within the Bible, we have mentions of such things from the giant sea beast Leviathan to Dagon, the half-fish god. There's also the giant whale that swallowed Jonah, and well, all sea monsters are discussed as being giant. There is Charybdis and the coastal Scylla, let alone the hippocampus amongst Greek stories, Tiamat in Mesopotamian stories, the Bakunawa of the Philippines, Jormungandr in the Norse mythology, and the sea monsters that some thunderbirds were said to battle. Then in folklore we have beings like the infamous kraken, and in more recent centuries the mysterious fatty deposits and rotting corpses that have been pulled up in nets or washed onto shore with no seeming match to anything seen before, and we can always say that Nessie and the various lake monsters around the world exist in this. In all cultures that live by water, there is something to fear within it. Now, cryptozoologists do generally tend to assume that the sightings often indicate leftover relics from prehistoric times. After all, crocodiles and turtles are leftovers from that time. But it's quite the jump to make. In fact, this whole subject area is somewhere the oddest things can pop up, from the fact that we heard stories about the kraken, that the whalers would spread stories about the giant squid beaks they'd find in sperm whale stomachs, that they might even see one's dying battle as a sperm whale scoffed it down. The kraken, although often pooh-poohed as mythology, seems to have been real, maybe not battling ships as fiction and stories like to say, but that its limbs would be found washing ashore, and we've in recent years filmed live images of these creatures. They actually look golden in colour in the video. Look it up because it's an equivalent to the moon landing for cryptid fans and animal lovers overall. We've found it's not always that simple. In fact, with many things being mused as sea dragons, and many of the images seen or described to artists as matching the marine reptiles of yesteryear, it's no doubt that many of the sea monsters we hear of might be stories about them. Considering that Greek philosopher Xenophanes of Colophon, not sure how I'm pronouncing that, 570 to 480 BC, was able to determine shells, fossils, on a ridge were similar to those found in the seas. There is no doubt in the idea that some mythological sea monsters could indeed be looked at, as we've often postulated, with the link between dragons and dinosaurs, as maybe sea monsters was the way to understand it all. The bones had to come from a living being at some point. Now, in the Vale, in these next few pieces, I've broken down the grouping of sea monsters to several different groups, and this is how it will go, because each one is a bit different in the Vale. This includes the leviathans, the giant monsters, the mermaids, the tritons, the sharkmen, the Caeciliae, the Lorelei and Melusine, the Selkies, the Cetus, the Hydra, the Jormungand, including the Ouroboros, the Hippocampi, the Ichthyocentaurs, the Longanga, the Makara, and the Ponaturi. I don't know if I've pronounced some of them right. So hopefully you'll stick around to learn about these beings and what they are within the veil, and that you're fascinated by them. But we'll see. Sea monsters are a very complicated bunch of, well, considering oarfish have been postulated as one of the possible sea creatures that we've always seen spouting things like spouting water like a gargouille. It's very, very inconsistent. But thank you for listening.